If you want to treat your acne with LED masks, watch this video before you buy. Today we're going to discuss whether LED technology helps with acne, as well as talking about skin of color and whether or not it's safe to use LED tech. I'm Dr. Sapna. I'm a doctor who suffers with acne and has also studied derm, and that makes me the perfect person to talk about it. So let's get started. Now, LEDs have been around in the medical world for some time, but they've only really reached at-home skincare in the last few years. They've also been evolving so much with different delivery systems and different colors. We've all seen the adverts using masks, probes, wands, all different ways to deliver LED lights to the surface of your skin. The reason I want to focus on acne to begin with is because I have acne prone skin. I have a lot of under the skin sort of congested blackheads and whiteheads. I used to have much more inflamed cystic acne, and that is currently under control, mostly because I've seen doctors, used different medications, as well as good skincare routines and habits that have helped me. And I want to talk about skin of color because I know so many of my viewers actually have darker skin tones like me. Now, the LED masks aren't cheap, so it's really important that you have all this information so you know whether or not to buy it. As well as that, I work with lots and lots of patients who have acne, and I want to know whether or not I can recommend LED technology for them. I'm going to make loads more videos about LEDs just because there are so many unanswered questions, and I'm going to make a specific video looking at my before and afters with using this mask for 2 weeks, using it every other day. So make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss that video. As always, I get my information directly from the clinical research that exists out there. It's global, worldwide research looking at trials to see what does and doesn't work. It was part of my medical training to be able to critically analyze these trials and understand what is going on. Bloody hell, this video took me so long to research because there were so many papers to read through. Now, this video has very kindly been sponsored by Artemis. They have gifted me this face mask and neck plate. I'm going to put a full review towards the end of this video, so keep watching so you don't miss it. Now, what is LED and how does it work? LED stands for light emitting diode. This essentially means it's a conductor that when current flows through it, it releases visible light that we can see. All visible light comes out at different wavelengths. Now, the different wavelengths affect how deep these lights can go and penetrate through the layers of skin. This is also what changes the different proteins, molecules, and cells that it targets within the skin. It ends up causing stimulation or inhibition of different processes within the skin. Each color targets is an entirely different process that is constantly going on within our skin, which makes it quite hard to get your head around. It's also quite similar to laser technology as well. Now, lasers use a much more focused light beam, which makes it generally more destructive to the processes that it's targeting. We're not going to talk about lasers today because that's quite different technology, causes different effects, but if you're definitely interested, please leave me a comment below so I know. I also wanted to clarify the differences between LED and UV radiation. Now, UV actually has a shorter wavelength than LED and visible light. Again, this has different properties and they tend to lead to more cell destroying and DNA destroying processes. That's what causes the destruction for aging and cancers that we worry about. Now, thinking about skin of color specifically, skin of color obviously has more melanin on the skin, and generally that's because we have an increased melanin production from the same number of melanocytes as people without darker skin tones, but we tend to react by producing more melanin. And our skin produces melanin in response to the damage from UV radiation, lasers, things like that. And that's why you actually have to be very careful with LED lights. The main issue is that skin of color tends to have more issues with post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation and acne scarring. And I'll just tell you this now, if you are worried about serious hyperpigmentation, you just need to avoid LEDs altogether. Now, there is a huge gap in science and technology for skin of color. From all the papers I read, none of them really look at skin of color and the effects of LEDs. And it basically leaves all the patients and consumers with skin of color having to kind of make their own judgment whether or not something is safe. Look, from my own experiences, all I would say is that I don't have pigmentation as a main issue for me. My biggest issue is acne, and I do get scarring from acne, but it's not something that would stop me using the LED mask. I'm more interested in targeting and reducing the acne to prevent pigmentation in the first place. Now, that's my own personal view for my skin, but your skin could be really, really different, so just be careful. Throughout this video, I'll give some more recommendations I have for skin of color that can help you be a bit more vigilant if you want to use this tech. Now, let's talk about exactly what LED lights do for acne. Now, generally there are two main colors of LED lights that we kind of talk about, the blue light and the red light. Those are the two that are most researched in the data. So starting with blue LED light. Blue LED light targets something called porphyrins that are produced by the bacteria on our skin when we have acne. Now, it's these porphyrins that are very pro-inflammatory and actually cause inflammation around spots and pimples. Now, there are different pathways that cause inflammation in the skin, and that's just one of the main ones in acne. So the blue LED light is really good at directly targeting those porphyrins for this inflammation process. It's produced by Cutibacterium acnes, which is the main bacteria contributing to that inflammation. The other thing that blue LED light does is it helps control oil and sebum production from your pilosebaceous units. If you have more questions about how acne works and the formation of acne, have a look at this video where I talk about the 3 different steps involved. Blue light targets 2 of those steps, which makes it really, really useful. Now, red light can also help with acne as well. Red light mainly targets the fibroblasts that produce collagen. Now, collagen is the scaffolding in the skin, and actually it's collagen that gets degraded and misshapen when we get deep pitted acne scars. Red LED light might actually help you rebuild that scaffolding that can help either prevent or actually treat those deep acne scars. However, for scarring specifically, there is a big gap in the data. Pretty much all the studies have shown LED lights are better for inflammatory acne. That means the big red cystic pimples. They do often talk about the non-inflammatory sort of comedonal acne, the stuff that I deal with, and it does say that there is some improvements, but those results aren't as impressive as the changes in inflammatory acne. Most of the studies that I reviewed look at things over an 8 to 12 week consistent use. You will not see changes if you are gonna be using this for 2 or 3 days and then forget about it and leave it in a drawer. You're only gonna see the results if you remain consistent. But I really think that that's the same with all skincare, and that's what all of the trials tend to support. Now, none of the trials actually discuss the other skincare that these patients use. So we don't know whether or not the patients are on any medications or other skincare to help with their acne. So we assume that all the results, that all the improvements are coming from the LEDs alone, but we don't know that for certain. And as I mentioned earlier, none of these research papers look at skin of color specifically. We don't know the different skin tones of the patients involved in a lot of these trials, so it's very difficult to judge what effects it could have. And it makes it a little unclear whether or not LEDs play well with other skincare. Now, we know how they work, so we can kind of hypothesize how they'll work with the other skincare and where to use it in your routine as well. And I'll make those recommendations a little bit later in this video as well. Now, let's look a little bit more closely at some results. So this trial had 35 people using blue light technology for 4 weeks, twice a day. They measured the number of inflammatory acne lesions as well as the non-inflammatory acne lesions. So they noticed that there was a 77% decrease in those inflamed lesions. That's huge. They also noticed a 54% reduction in those comedonal non-inflamed acne lesions. They noticed that these patients had decreased oil and sebum production on their skin. They noticed that they had less inflammation sort of altogether. The size of the pimples were smaller, but they also noticed that the size of pores were smaller. Now, that's something that's quite difficult to measure, quite subjective, but we all feel like we have enlarged pores, right? And that's something that's really hard to treat with most skincare. So if there is data to support the fact that blue light can help you reduce the size of pores, that is amazing. But what I'd say is take this whole study with a pinch of salt. It looks at a really intense course of treatment. Twice daily for 4 weeks is a lot. Most people don't have time for this. And actually, because it's not tested on skin of color, we don't know if that is too much and can cause long-term hyperpigmentation for dark skin. For most at-home devices, they generally recommend using it 3 or 4 times a week rather than using it every day or twice a day like this study. But the study is definitely useful for demonstrating the positive effects it has on acne. Another trial looked at 41 people over an 8-week period using it every other day, which I think is much more realistic for someone at home. They saw a 52% reduction in acne count. They don't talk too much about whether or not it was inflamed or non-inflamed acne, but they mentioned that the people who didn't have treatment at all actually noticed there was an increase in their acne count. Just want to mention there are definitely other colors of your LED mask and LED technology that can help with acne. Now, red light is also really important. Red light targets collagen producing fibroblasts directly. So it helps stimulate collagen, which is the scaffolding that keeps your skin looking bouncy, firm, keeps the structure of your skin. So when you have deep acne scars, it tends to be disruption in this collagen. So the red LED mask can target this collagen production, helping your skin avoid those deeper structural acne scars. This particular paper had 10 patients using blue light and 10 patients using red light and counted the differences in acne lesions. Again, they only looked at inflamed acne, but you can see that the blue light had a more significant reduction in acne lesion. But also remember that this study was incredibly small with only 10 patients in each category. Now, there are actually loads more studies that support that in very similar sample sizes, noticing that blue light definitely helps the number of inflamed acne lesions. Interestingly, none of these studies have a general consensus on which types of devices are best and how often you should be using them. Some of them looked at smaller handheld devices like the Lalor one that I have here. This does more than just LED tech, and maybe I'll do a video on this particular device. But some of the studies also looked at bigger sort of face plates or face masks as well. What I gather from that is that there is no general consensus from what is best. It's just more important to find something that you will actually use, whether that means it's more cost effective or something that's easier to apply and use day to day. Now, I'll talk about all the different colors that LED masks come in. Like, look, this one does every color under the sun. But generally, most of the data is all about blue and red LED lights. Now, there are loads of devices like this that actually combine the red and blue lights into one sort of device or one delivery mechanism so that you can use both of those together. This is generally the one that is most proven and targets most of your skin concerns. It usually looks almost purple or pink because of the combination of the two colors. It does get a bit dicey when you're looking at the other colors, purely because there isn't the randomized control, the high quality research that supports the use of them. There's certainly lots of anecdotal data that practitioners swear by, particularly the green one. There are lots of devices that support the use of green LED tech, but there isn't that high quality research that we can definitely stand by. The only real study data that I could find on green lights was something tested on rats after a burn and inflammation. Now, obviously human skin doesn't react exactly the same way as rat skin, which makes it really difficult to translate that data into our skin. There are some theories that green light can target pigmentation and break up melanin clusters. But again, the data isn't really there. So I would say be very, very cautious with the green light, especially if you've got hyperpigmentation, prone to melasma, or have skin of color. Interestingly, there was one study on human skin, but it was done on cadavers, which is samples from dead bodies. And I'm not sure if we can definitely translate that across to people who are alive and well. They did notice that those Caucasian cadavers noticed improvements in collagen, but they're dead, so I don't know exactly how that works. Now, I want to talk a bit about side effects and safety concerns with using an LED mask like this. From all the trials, the main side effects that they reported were redness, a bit of heat on their skin, or erythema, and a bit of dryness. Now, I haven't noticed any of those things from my couple of weeks trial. I have noticed that because you use it on clear skin, on skin that you've just cleansed and you haven't put any products on, in that period of time, my skin does get a little bit dry, which is why normally after cleansing, I put on a mist and hyaluronic acid or whatever, a serum very, very quickly. I don't like waiting around because my skin does get a bit dry in that time. So when you're sitting there for 10, 15 minutes with the mask on, straight after you've cleansed your skin, you might notice that your skin feels dry in that time. But generally, I didn't have that issue. It was something that is definitely documented in the research papers though. The other safety concern that is well discussed is the issue of eye protection. Now I'm going to turn this off so I can show you properly. Now, this mask has these little silicone eye protective pads. And generally it's because we don't want the LED lights that close to your eye with high intensity, super, super bright on your eyes. Now, you would have noticed if you've ever had any laser treatments or seen these LED masks in clinic, that they give you those tiny little goggles that you can't see out of that are like blackened. And that helps protect your eyes because the LEDs at very high intensity can cause damage to the back of your eye, to your retinas. Most LED masks that are out there have some form of eye protection. So I've seen some that have a sort of almost like sunglasses on the inside, and ones that definitely have holes or gaps around your eyes to protect you. Now, this is pretty amazing. These really, really comfortable silicone pads sit around your eye and just really block off a lot of the light that comes in from the mask around it. It means you can still see through them, but you're not going to get the really high intensity LED bulbs right into your eye. The other safety concern is that if you have any kind of light sensitive skin issue, some people have something called polymorphic light eruptions, things like that, please don't use this because this will stimulate that and cause worsening of your skin condition. Now, hyperpigmentation is the other issue that we need to talk about. Like I mentioned earlier, because the testing isn't done on skin of color, we really don't know the exact effects that these lights could have on your skin, whether or not they cause pigmentation in darker skin tones. There was one study that used blue light for 1 hour on 4 consecutive days on type 3 and type 4 skin, so not even the darkest types of skin, but somewhere in the middle. And they definitely noticed an increase in melanin production, an increase in pigmentation for these people. Now, they reported that that pigmentation quickly resolved on its own and they didn't need to do too much to it, but they were also in that trial testing the use of niacinamide against pigmentation. So that study makes things really hard to interpret whether or not we can use LED lights safely on dark skin. And there was one more study that looked at it on goldfish, but that was really bloody useful. Now, generally, I'll just talk about the pros and cons. Like, this is great because it can be done at home. You don't have to go into a clinic to use these LED masks. Generally, the higher power masks are ones that are reserved for clinics, but most of the things that you can buy for at-home use are generally have a lower intensity LED bulbs. And the whole treatment is non-invasive and painless, so that makes it a lot more easy to use and much more tolerable. Generally, LED masks are considered safe in pregnancy and breastfeeding, which is different to any kind of injectables and things like that. The general cons is that sometimes they're really, really time consuming. You can get masks like this where you can see through them, and that means that you can actually use them whilst you're doing other bits and pieces, watching TV, using your laptop, etc. Now, I normally wear glasses, so I can only really use this on the days that I'm wearing contact lenses. So that's just something to bear in mind if you're a glasses wearer as well. Again, like we talked about all these amazing results, seeing 77% reduction. It might not be that simple. Everyone's skin is different. And like I said, these studies still have some holes in them that make them different. There are still a lot of holes in the research data for skin of color, for hyperpigmentation. So like I said, if you have any issues with that, just avoid it. I will still continue to try this LED mask. I'll let you know what happens. Now, I'll do a little mini review about the Artemis mask. So this is a Korean made mask and it's got, I think it's 1,000 LED bulbs in there, and that's pretty amazing, much more than anything else I've ever seen on the market. It's something that you can use at home as well as in clinic. So if you are a practitioner looking for something for your clinic, this is definitely something to consider, purely because it also comes with the neck plate that Artemis have very kindly sent me. Now, these are pretty comfortable wearing masks. The mask comes with these silicone pads that you can put on in 2 different places. So one on the chin like that, and that helps it become much, much more comfortable for where your face rests, and another silicone pad that you can put on the forehead to make it much more comfortable to wear. It also means that you can customize the fit in a few different ways. So you can sort of keep both of those pads, you can remove one, see what fits for you, as well as adjust the Velcro strap to fit comfortably around your head. One thing that really pleasantly surprised me is how good quality this feels. It's a little bit heavy, but it's certainly sturdy and doesn't feel flimsy in any way. And it's exactly the same with the neck piece. One thing I did find is that it was slightly uncomfortable to wear both together. Generally, I can wear the neck piece and just be walking around the house and doing whatever. And then if I'm using the mask, I will just be sitting watching TV. But generally, wearing them together gives you slightly restricted movement at the neck, which I didn't love. The other main con about this device is the price. Now, there's no way around that. It's definitely a very, very expensive product. It's something that there's something that might be affordable for you, especially if you're running a clinic and you know you're going to be able to use it on lots of different patients. But if it's within your budget, you might find that this is a good way to go. What's cool about this device is that it's customizable in a number of different ways. So you can use every color under the sun. And the other thing that's amazing is that it comes with an app that makes the mask customizable. Now, I'll show you here in this bit of B-roll in this video that you can adjust the app to whatever your skincare issues are. And it means you can change the different colors going on even throughout the mask. So if you want a red light just to target the eyes and you want blue light everywhere else, you can do that. And if you want to use a green light around your chin and you want to use blue light on your forehead and red light on your cheeks, you can do that too. The app makes it really, really easy and quite fun to play around with. That's something that I haven't seen in any other LED masks, especially with this many color and ranges. Now, I'll just talk about a few general recommendations on how to use this. It's always advised that you use this on clean skin. So after you cleanse your skin, you're supposed to use these masks. And that's because you don't want to reflect the LED lights back away from your skin from any serums or moisturizers that have a shiny or dewy effect. Most serums and moisturizers will do that, so it's best to use this on clean skin. That also keeps the mask and the neck plate nice and clean, so you're not constantly sort of transferring dirt and bacteria onto this. You can generally just wipe these down. The other tip I'd just say is make sure that you're protecting your eyes. Make sure that those silicone eye pads really fit on your eyes really nice and comfortably so that you're not getting any damage to your retinas. My general recommendations. Now, an LED mask does not replace a good skincare routine, and I have to emphasize that a lot. Your good skincare routine is what helps you get results, and it's also proven, and that's also something you're going to be doing every day as a habit. This is definitely a good supplement to that. Now, your everyday skincare routine doesn't have to be expensive, but generally LED masks are. So if you're under a budget, I would just suggest keeping your skincare routine nice and simple, having a good routine rather than worrying about trying to afford one of these. If you have significant acne, you can't be relying on LED masks alone. You need to see your doctor. You can probably use this in conjunction with some of the other medication. If you're using antibiotics or topical skincare, I'd say be careful if you're using isotretinoin, purely because you can get quite sun sensitive. But if you're using a low dose of tretinoin and your skin isn't sensitive or reacting to the sun, you should be okay to use this. All I'd say is see your doctor for your medical therapies, the treatments for your acne, and then you can use this alongside it to help your acne as well. For skin of color, I'd say definitely don't go over the time, but also don't experiment with colors. And unfortunately, we don't have the data to support that. So if you have that hyperpigmented skin that you're worried about, please don't play around with all the different colors because you don't know how your skin could react. All I'd say is that this is a massive point of research. So I've noticed that there are more and more papers coming out each year. So there could be something new that helps support LED use in skin of color, but for now, just use caution. Now, I've talked about the use of LED masks for acne, specifically for skin of color as well. So if you're interested in more videos about LED, please hit subscribe. Please tell me in the comments what more you want to hear. And if you have any questions, hopefully I can answer them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.